Well, we stay in Grenada and we talk now to a member. She's the public relations officer for the main opposition party in Grenada, the National Democratic Congress. She's also an attorney at law, Claudette Joseph. Ms. Joseph, thank you for joining us. And I want to start by asking you about a general response from yourself as a citizen and as the public relations officer for the NDC party on the way the ruling Keith Mitchell government has handled the last 2.5 months of this COVID pandemic.
Good day to you, Zerith, and it's nice seeing you again. It's been a while, and
It has.
thanks. Yes, thanks for having me on. In relation to how the COVID crisis has been handled in Grenada, what I will say is for now is all's well that ends well. Um, by that I mean initially the government appeared entirely unprepared. It was clear to all that there wasn't a plan, although we watched the events unfolding in China and all the predictions were there that this will, in all likelihood, be ultimately declared a pandemic. We were not prepared here in Grenada. In fact, the government was forced into action when it initially instituted the limited, what it styled the limited state of emergency on March 13th. By then, Grenadians had already begun taking action on their own. Certain businesses had already instituted certain protocols on their own because government was lagging in acting and leading and responding. I can tell you, I run a business and we had already implemented certain protocols, including rotating staff and all of that. Some people had closed, even certain government offices were taking the lead. And so government came from behind in terms of being proactive and leading this charge. So they were after a very bumpy start, trial and error, mainly reactionary. And I must say, a lot of the times reacting to some of the recommendations that were publicly made by my political organization, the National Democratic Congress, including initiation of the borders and the ultimate lockdown, as we call it here in Grenada. Having said that, I think at the end of the day, they settled down, caught up, especially in the area of testing, where we were woefully inadequate in the beginning, woefully inadequate, especially when compared to our Caribbean neighbors. And that is because some of the proprietary steps that were required, including availing ourselves of the training opportunities for so offered by the WHO in the lead up pandemic, Grenada, for some inexplicable reason, did not take advantage of those opportunities. So we were behind Dominica, St. Lucia, Trinidad, all these other countries, Barbados with testing and so. And I am happy to say that ultimately, and largely in response to a lot of public pressure, it seems as though the government has finally kind of gotten its act together. And I think now things are progressing at a far more satisfactory pace and rate. And we hope that as we move towards slowly reopening and resuming economic activity, that is done responsibly in a proper phased manner with all protocols, necessary protocols established
Let's
and observed.
let's
Yeah,
switch let's switch gears a little bit because I know we have several things we want to talk about.
right.
The
Mm-hmm.
Grenlec issue.
Right.
So the ruling against the government of Grenada with Grenlec. Give us a synopsis of that and what is your stance on the country? What's the takeover of Grenlec by the country? Give us a quick synopsis of that.
Well, yeah, let me correct you off the bat. It's not a takeover so much, but more like an unnecessary yoke that has been placed around our collective necks by the reckless and illogical vendetta that Dr. Mitchell and Gregory Bowen in particular, and by extension the New National Party, have maintained against the investors, WRB, who have invested in Grenlec by purchasing 50% of the shares. They've held this vendetta for 26 years, although repeatedly over those 26 years, they have been proven to be wrong in their positions, and their conduct has been shown to be detrimental to the country. They've nonetheless insisted, and here we are with a judgment against the people of Grenada, fueled mainly by two men, and costing every man, woman, child, and baby in Grenada right now owing Grenlec in excess of $2,000, because the judgment is 200 million plus, and I say plus because interest accrues daily on the judgment, and the interest calculates to somewhere in the region of about 12 to 13 million dollars a year.
Well, Ms. Joseph, one may argue that such a vital national part of the infrastructure for Grenada, the electricity company, should be owned by Grenadians and should be managed by Grenadians.
But let me tell you that it was owned by Grenadians. Up when the agreement was reached in 1994. And it was managed by Grenadians. In fact, the general manager was a certain man named Gregory Bowen, who is the same person who is our current Minister of Works and who has gotten us in this mess. And what did he do? He ran Grenlec to the ground with awful, terrible.
Well, no, I don't want to go back to 1994. Let's talk about the judgment that's at hand and moving forward. From your party's standpoint, what is your biggest objection or your biggest your stance on this issue? What is the stance that you want us to take away? We have a regional audience.
No.
What?
Yes, but before I tell you what our position is now, we must put where we are in context, right? Because what has brought us is a consistent claim by the current administration and its leaders, mainly Gregory Bowen and Keith Mitchell, that it was a bad decision in 1994 to sell 50% of the shares in Grenlec. Now, the tribunal in its ruling debunked that. As a matter of fact, every criticism of the arrangement made resulted was debunked as having no merit whatsoever, right? And so all of what they're saying in terms of cheaper, we should own it because we're going to get cheaper electricity rates. Grenlec has been overpricing. They didn't put enough into renewable energy. Bad deal, we could have gotten more for the centuries. All of those things were disregarded or rejected rather by the tribunal, right? What we are saying, we are in a position where the only thing that determines is how WRB is going to be paid the $200 million plus that they must be paid because of the judgment obtained. And respectfully, Zerith, it is not for the NDC at this stage to come up with an answer to this question that Bowen and Keith now have to deal with. It is not for us to come up with a plan for them as to how they're going to satisfy this judgment. What we can say is that whatever they do in satisfying this judgment, they must avoid at all costs burdening the public purse of this country any further. Because I'll tell you this, we cannot afford it. We all know we cannot afford it. The country cannot raise the funds by way of a loan. In fact, the IMF said 2 years ago that whatever advancements we've made under the structural adjustment program can be eroded in one few events happening, only one of them. And a judgment against the government of Grenada in this matter was one of the events that they flagged. So we know that the country can't afford it. They have gotten us into a position that the country can ill afford.
We have limited time. We have limited time.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you. We have less than a minute before we have to go. But we're here now,
Right.
and I know you say we can't afford it, but it's a judgment against the people of Grenada. Do you have a suggestion to give to them? I mean, it's not against Keith Mitchell and Gregory Bowen. It's against the people of Grenada, right? That's my understanding.
Right. First of all, I would encourage the people of Grenada, the first opportunity, get rid of these reckless guys from our government. Secondly, the government must enter into some kind of arrangement, negotiations or so with WRB, right? Perhaps it's a long shot, but perhaps
WRB are the owners,
yes,
the principal owners. Yeah.
Yes, right. It's a long shot, but firstly, perhaps to reduce on the amount that we must pay. I say it's a long shot because they already have a judgment. Our government is in no position of strength in terms of negotiating engagement. But they must discuss with WRB a mechanism by which payment will be made, which will, one, perhaps reach the amount to be paid, and secondly, have some kind of mechanism that will open up the door for more Grenadians to own at least some of those shares.
All right. We must leave it here. We're totally out of time. We do apologize also to our viewers for the quality of the connection in St. George's, Grenada. But she's Claudette Joseph. She is the Public Relations Officer of the National Democratic Congress and also a private citizen and attorney in Grenada. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.